Hey y'all, I have a question for you. Can white folk and black folk really be friends? That's what today's 10-minute workshop is about. And the reason it came about, I've just been examining and looking at race relations that's in the world today. And I said to myself, can we really be friends? You know, when the election came and some white folk that I knew, I wouldn't call them friends, but I would call them associates. I had no clue that they were MAGA and because they wouldn't post anything about MAGA. But when Trump won, I saw them with like they put onesies on their grandchildren that said MAGA and all that. And it really floored me. And so of course I blocked them because I'm like, wow, you were hiding your views all along with me. So I was like, can we really be friends? And I did a deep dive and research. And so let's just jump into it. Let's be real. Race still shapes everything in America. It really does. From who gets followed around in a store to who gets pulled over by police to who feels comfortable in certain spaces. And when it comes to friendships, race matters. So some people say black and white folk can't be real friends because racism is too deeply ingrained in some white folk till they haven't done the work to see if it is even a part of them. And others say that true friendships are possible, but they take work. So what's the truth? So to really answer this question, we have to look at the now, the past, and the history that got us here. So let's talk about it. The reality of black and white friendships today. What does friendship between black and white folk look like in 2025? Well, social circles still stay segregated. Think about it. Look at schools, workplaces, even social gatherings. People tend to stick to their own racial group. Not always, but often. I mean, even think about it. The most segregated hour on a Sunday is church. You'll see a lot of black folk attending predominantly white churches, but very rarely will you see white folk attending predominantly black churches. All right, racially charged conversations can break friendships. How many friendships ended in 2020 after George Floyd, after Black Lives Matter protests, after Trump's presidency? Race became a deal breaker in friendships. Like I told you all, it definitely was for me. And see, the problem is, it's not that black people don't want to have the conversation. As many white folk don't want to have the conversation. They don't want to take the Band-Aid off so that sore, that scar of slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, black codes, so that scar can't heal. They just want to bandage, cover it up, because that's a moment in time. See, no one wants to really address a time when they've hurt someone. But the only way for the other person to heal is you got to talk about it. It's just like in a marriage. If I've done something, not if, when I've done things to hurt my husband, he needs to talk about it. Even though it may hurt me to hear what I did and how it affected him, he can't heal unless we talk about it. And that's the same with race relations in this country. Black folks often have to manage their white friends, meaning many black people feel like they can't be their full selves around their white friends. We have to soften our truth, avoid topics, or even racism, or explain racism in a way that's not too intense. And it's exhausting. Who the freak has time for that? Because your white fragility, you're so fragile, you don't want to hear the truth. And again, when we talk as black people, when we talk about what happened in this country with our ancestors, we're not saying that is your fault, but we need you to understand what some of your ancestors did, just so you can understand how we are the way we are, why we operate unconsciously and consciously in post-traumatic slave trauma. Don't think that when slavery stopped, that all black people's problems went away. 400 plus years of indoctrinated chattel slavery does a job on someone's psyche. And then throughout the years, the United States still perpetuated racial hierarchy and racial supremacy through laws, actual laws that kept black people down. So again, it's a frustrating thing whenever as black people, we have to explain to you all. But then when we explain, you just want to tell us to get over it. White people can opt out of race conversations, but black people can't. If race makes a white friend uncomfortable, they can just walk away from the topic. But black folks, race is a daily reality. That imbalance can hurt friendships. See, if we talk about race, y'all white folks can just walk away. I'll never forget, I was in a meeting And we were talking, I was expressing how racism impacts me. And oh, I think I know what it was. It was a shooting somewhere where a white person shot up, I think, some black folk. And my associates around me, who were all white, were trying to explain to me that racism was a mental illness. And I said, no, it's not. So you're telling me that everybody who owned slaves was mentally ill? Everybody? Don't gaslight me. Don't miss me with the bullshit. You understand? You're not going to piss on me and tell me it's raining. Racism is not mental illness, damn it. Racism is one indoctrinated choice, and it's taught. And it's also a spirit, but it's not mental illness. All right, so the recent past, from 1900s to 2010s. A lot of people like to say the 90s and early 2000s were colorblind, but were they? All right, let's look at a few things that shaped how black and white people viewed each other during this time. 90s, post-racial lie. Shows like Friends and Seinfeld had almost no black characters, yet they took place in diverse cities. The message, white was default and race wasn't a conversation mainstream America wanted to have. Let's talk about in 2008, Obama's election, post-racial America. Some people thought racism was over because we had a black president. Meanwhile, the Tea Party movement and racial backlash proved otherwise. Trayvon Martin and the rise of I don't see color thinking. After Trayvon Martin was killed in 2010, people started saying Black Lives Matter in response. Others said all lives matter. Friendships ended over these conversations, and this was a turning point. But where did this we don't see race mindset come from? Let's take it back. Let's go back further. The Civil Rights era, the 50s and to the 80s. If you think black and white people had real friendships in the 50s and 60s, you better think again. Friendship wasn't even an option in most cases. And it wasn't even a friendship. It was a, you're my maid, you take care of my children, you do what I say. Segregation kept people apart. Blacks and white kids weren't going to school together in the 50s and 60s. They weren't living in the same neighborhoods. They weren't working the same jobs. So how could they have formed any friendships? White allyship versus real friendship. There were white allies in the civil rights movement, but even then, many of them weren't dealing with racism personally. They could step in and out of the fight while black people couldn't. They could march on Saturday and still go back to their white neighborhoods, but you black 7 days a week, 365, 366 a leap year. Redlining and housing segregation kept friendships from forming. Even after segregation officially ended, banks and the government made sure black folks stayed in certain neighborhoods and white folks stayed in theirs. That divide is still here today. But let's go back even further, y'all. Let's take it back from the 1600s to the 1940s. The idea of true friendship between black and white people wasn't even possible for most of U.S. history. Why? Because of slavery from 1600s to 1865. Friendship implies equality. But during slavery, black people were legally considered property. A white person could befriend an enslaved person, but that person could still be sold, beaten, raped, killed with no consequence. Also, during Jim Crow from the 1870s to the 1960s, even after slavery, Jim Crow laws made sure black and white people stayed separate. Even if they got along, they couldn't legally share spaces, they couldn't date, they couldn't marry in many states. So what does all that of this history mean now? What true friendship requires, y'all? If we've learned anything from history, it's that black and white friendships don't just happen, they take real work. So what does it take? It takes an honest conversation about race. And a lot of white folk not ready to have that. It takes white friends who don't stay silent on racism. It's going to take black friends who feel safe being their full selves. And it's going to take mutual respect, not just getting along. Friendship means showing up for each other, even when it's uncomfortable. So let's bring this conversation to you. Have you had a friendship across racial lines? How did it work? And if so, drop it in the comments. Let me know how it worked being black with white friends. And how is your white friendship? And how does the white person's family feel about you? Have you had Thanksgiving dinner? Have you traveled with them? Have you gone to weddings, bar mitzvahs? What have you done with them? So leave it in the comments. Hey, thank you again. If you like my content, please like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell whenever you know when I upload. Follow me on all my social medias. And hey, buy me a cup of coffee if it really blesses you. Talk to you soon. I hope you're learning something.